right.
I can't get
Welcome, everybody. This is, I would say, historic panel because these two have never actually been on stage together. So this is the first time that we're seeing these two folks come together and be on a panel. So I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to do some bios first. I am Chrissy Farr. I'm an investor at OMERS Ventures. Some of you may know me from my time at CNBC where I covered digital health. And with me today, I have Jonathan Bush, founder and CEO of Zeus Health, a company focused on creating the healthcare industry's first ever shared development platform backed by a shared data record, and thereby empowering digital-first healthcare builders.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
Can we?
You have a good marketing team. And then Glen Tullman, exec chairman and CEO of Transcarent, the first comprehensive consumer-directed health and care platform for employees of self-insured employers and their families. So thanks so much to you both for being here. And I thought we would dive in first with a little bit of digital health history. So there was another time that you two were sort of on stage together, except for it was just Jonathan on stage. And it involved an incident where clothing was removed and shorts were put on. And I would love to have these two share this story because it is amazing. So I will start with you, Jonathan.
Well, I feel like you should start with Glen, who was the innocent victim.
Maybe we'll do you, and then we'll get Glen's reflections of this incident.
Well, my experience of Glen is like, I can't make the thing. I gotta do, but I'll do it on video. So they arranged for this huge video wall, 10 times the size of this, and Glen is up there.
And we should
I
say
was really excited.
Glen is the CEO of Allscripts.
Allscripts. I had always wanted to be John Halleck, Glen's PR genius. At the time was my budding PR genius, and was all about getting Glen, we gotta get Glen, we gotta get on the same page as Glen. And this was the big day, and you've gotta fly to San Francisco to go to this thing that no one's ever heard of called, at the time, Health 2.0, and deep cuts, Health 2.0 deep cuts. And, and we get there, and I fly out there for this thing, and he's not coming. And instead, we see this giant Glen, and I'm about to go on. He's like, my friend Chip Ock, who was an engineer at Athena, now working on a brilliant company called Dorsata, interested in women's health, said, oh my God, it's the Apple ad. It's the 1984 Apple ad. And I did not know what he was talking about. And so, as it was just slightly, was just when we were starting Twitter, but I don't know if we had iPhones. Maybe we had iPhones, I'm not sure. But he whipped open his laptop and found the ad.
Who here remembers
of the woman
Apple ad?
running?
Raise
with
your hands if, okay,
and the
got it.
Giant, and all we could think of was giant Glen, who had a giant company that was really successful, and we were not giant in any way. He's like, you have to do this, like the woman. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't have any shorts. We're going on in 5 minutes. He's like, I do. And he reached into his laptop bag and pulled out soaking wet from his self running shorts and said, you got to put these on, and you got to do it, and I'm going to CVS to get a Nerf football. And so, great leader follows well. So I went into the men's room and left my gray flannel pants on the hook, put on the things. He met me in the back, and the cameraman is there with the big camera, and it's a big thing. Not a big crowd, maybe, well, I'm sorry, this is a very big crowd, but about this size. And I say to the guy, hey, okay, I'm gonna run in. Like, try to get me on camera, I'm gonna run in. And the guy's like, who are you, what? I said, I'm gonna run in, I'm gonna be the guy on stage. He's like, all right. And so he says, Jonathan Bush, and it's Frank Kibbe, the American Family Practice, something or other, Society of Important Committees. And I run in, and the guy videotapes it, and it's on the screen for a minute, me running in, and I throw the Nerf football at the thing. Crickets. Nobody got it. And I'm there, like, in a white couch, alone. And then the session begins, and that's it. It's just deadly silence.
This is so
And then like
awkward.
5 minutes later, or
viscerally.
eternity later, people start laughing. And the laughter begins over here, and it goes all the way through the thing. And it was my first experience of Twitter. Somebody had Googled it and said, no, and they had tweeted it or hashtagged it or zing, zing, zing. And little by little, while we were talking, people were slowly getting the joke of 10 minutes ago.
And meanwhile, Glen is like on this live
No
stream,
idea what the
has
hell
no
is going
clue what's just happened.
He thought we were talking about healthcare.
So what's going on for you in this moment?
So basically, my recollection is I came on, I was running a little late, and somebody said, Jonathan Bush is wearing shorts. He's sitting on a white couch with red shorts. And they showed me this image, and Jonathan was about this big, and I was about like 2 stories tall. And it just looked, and I saw him, and it hadn't started yet, and so he was sitting there kind of moving around on the couch and
wanting to disappear.
I guess I just felt a little bad for you. I don't know how else to say it. Anyway,
that's very sweet.
The rest of it went well.
Yeah.
I think.
So
no idea what
now
else.
you
Argued a
all
little
know what a big deal it is that we are here today, because you have that history.
And
No, don't. You never know. You never know. This was a risk.
no, these are blue. Yeah, it's not
We
the
didn't
same.
plan anything for today, but I think what that story shows us is, the two of you over the years, you could say many, many things about the way that you folks have run your business, but I think one thing that everyone would agree is that you do not play it safe. You've both come out and been, pretty real and honest when you felt strongly about something, whether it was when you were at Athena, taking on kind of Epic and Cerner, and then, same thing with Glen, and then more recently you published an op-ed on kind of your opinions on health plans and the way that they do business. And so I wondered if you could kind of share with this crew here kind of why you've come out and chosen to speak about these things. Do you think we should all be doing that, being, much more open about kind of our beliefs? And why do you think that folks do tend to play it fairly safe?
Well, I'll go ahead and jump in. So first of all, look, Jonathan was an innovator in the industry, and I always think that innovators are great. It was great competing. In one sense, we were competitors, but in another sense, we were both competing against the status quo, which was Epic and to a lesser extent Cerner. And we couldn't understand why these systems had to be so expensive, why, and now 20 years later, why they still are not interoperable, why you needed a scribe to actually use software, which we kind of thought collectively that you go and, like, can you imagine if you went to use Google and somebody said you have to actually hire somebody to use Google for you? Like, that's kind of the opposite of how software should work. So we were both innovating and trying to do something that would be positive for the people in healthcare. And we were, I think, both outspoken about it. Fast forward, healthcare is still broken. And we come to these conferences, and in some respects, we hear the same messages. And I think we have to collectively call each other out and kind of call bullshit when things aren't working the way they should. And we all know that. And I think it's more important than ever. We have the best doctors in the world, the best healthcare facilities in the world, and yet we're not delivering the best care. And that was magnified by the pandemic. And, we have to find a better way to deliver the care that people in this country and around the world deserve. And I think we're both committed to do that. Jonathan, much more working within the system this time around to try to fix what's happening. And I think we've taken the approach that the system is so broken that we have to find ways to work around the system. Because if you try to work through the system today, we've got a whole middle of the system that's designed to create friction and expense. And we really have to, good software collapses the middle. Travelocity basically gave you better information, better guidance, and made it easy to book a trip, and you found out that the travel agent in the middle was a cost and taking extra time and didn't add value. And every major industry in our country is being reformed in that way, except healthcare, where the middle is expanding. And so that's my view of it. It's pretty complimentary of you.
Yeah,
Good job.
yeah.
He's in shock.
Thanks. So I'm the insider now?
You kind of are.
I think
Kind of trying to fix the existing system.
okay. Yeah.
All right,
that right?
Jonathan, any regrets on because you've had your whole career, you have like gone out there and said what you think, and at times I think it served you, and at times it certainly hasn't. So looking back on that, do you have any regrets? Would you do it the same way?
Regrets, I've had a few. No, never regret. I mean, obviously it's so tempting to look backwards and, get into do loops in your head about what you did differently and, whether you were betrayed or and it's all
Would you have worn the
silly.
shorts again or not? Just
I
curious.
can't look back. You got to look forward and say, I love those shorts. I learned what Twitter was. Those shorts taught me Twitter.
There you go.
No regrets about anything in my mind. I think, obviously, we are tribal creatures. We gravitate to our group, and it feels existential to us. We don't want to break away from the pack because those who did, going back hundreds of thousands of years, left the gene pool in a very ugly, bloody way, right? And so we have that hardwired. And so finding the courage to not be in the pack is critical. And I think a lot of what we get upset about these days is our struggles with that fact. Like, we want to be inclusive, right? And then the fact that we're mean to other people who aren't inclusive like us, and so therefore being in the same mean tribal thing,
We're getting into
but with a different
evolutionary
group.
biology here.
Yeah, well, that's what it all is. And I think, we're all in an existential journey trying to figure out how to, be in a tribe that we feel good about. And that means occasionally standing up to our tribe so that the tribe comes a direction that we're proud of. And, for us, and, back in Athena days, I think this internet thing is going to be big, with respect to a very good enterprise software product at Allscripts and a very good business model that got doctors having a reason to prescribe. I mean, the way Glen, can I just say, Glen, this is the thing that is most important to me about you. Healthcare, to all of us, we should all respect this. There are many things. I mean, he's obviously not fat, and he looks great, which I hate, but healthcare doesn't really have a data problem, doesn't really have a technology problem. It would be great if we got so far that was our problem. Our problem is we don't have a business model. We don't have a gravitational pull. You know what, screw it, I'd just rather go back to the UK, right? Why is it that we've got this hang-up between our desire for a safety net, which is noble and good, and causes us to mess up the demand curve, which is also noble and good? How can we not break through? And Glen, 3 times, I mean, everybody had e-prescribing software. The guy, the CEO of Blue Shield back then, gave everybody the Palm Pilot, handed out 5,000 Palm Pilots, and no doctors used it. Remember the line, sometimes free's not cheap enough? Was it Schaefer or whatever, right? Glen got doctors to write prescriptions because he said, how about this? How about I give you a side business where you can sell drugs in your Allscripts refrigerator if you use my electronic order form, which is e-prescribing. And he got them e-prescribing. And then he added wafers. That's brilliant, right? Then we go on to Livongo, right? Insulin monitoring, heart monitoring, not new, But how about I guarantee I will catch your pre-diabetics and bring them home before it's too late, right? Takes a commodity thing that no one can get to work, sets it up with a business model, and the freaking thing works. And it's, grows and gets sensational valuation. But, even at different valuations, it's a phenomenal success of business model will. And now we see Transcarent, lovely chain of surgical centers. Everybody loves surgical centers. Not a breakthrough thing. But then he goes out and says, I'm going to use this as my anchor to windward so I can guarantee you good surgical prices. And then he can use that as a beachhead. This is 3 times taking shit that we all had and couldn't turn into a business and turning it into a real
John,
movement.
are you joining Transcarent as head of comms? Because I think there's
No.
a job.
I'm just going to stay over here and stay quiet. Let him go for a while.
If we all got to where we were working on functioning demand curves, where if you raise your price, you lose market share, you lower your price, you gain market share. Some of us winners might not win, some of us, but there would be great winners that we were glad they won, and there'd be losers that would get flushed out and get to work for the winners later, and it would be amazing. Maybe we are coming. Maybe HLTH, maybe this next agile push where we actually take tech talent and we put them with provider licenses. We actually deliver care. I hope someday the surgery centers maybe do deliver care. Many companies in this room actually cross that blood-brain barrier. They don't say, I'm going to build a tool and put it for sale, and someone's going to buy the tool and have a trainer train the other people to use the tool, and then there'll be a user conference where we'll all make gestures and try to make the tool better. Now these companies are actually merging the two into one single iterative, growing, evolving thing, where skill leverage and
Chrissy, let me help you.
Yeah.
Let me help Jonathan.
I think I might.
I was almost there. It was a lot.
I'm going to bring us to a new,
I got emotionally exhausted when I
think.
complimented Glenn, so I lost my train.
So I think what Jonathan was trying to say is we are at this unique time in healthcare. And, it may be the only good thing that's come out of the pandemic is an understanding, one, how rapidly we can change, how well the innovation process works, and the importance of care for everybody, because we created this term called essential workers, and everybody needs to get the right kind of care, otherwise we're all in trouble. So I think with that as an underpinning, I think you're going to see a dramatic change in the healthcare environment. And I think what you're going to see in the next 18 to 24 months is going to dictate the next 5 years, and that will dictate the next 25 years. And so, everybody talks about, is this a bubble?
Yep.
And I don't think it's a bubble, because a bubble says it's make-believe. And I think what the market has concluded, investors like yourself now, that there are going to be some game-changing companies built in this space. Are people overpaying for certain companies today? Yeah. And they're going to lose that money. But there's other companies that are going to become the new leaders in healthcare. And, if we look at what happened in the PBM space, it's instructive. There's now 5 companies valued at over $1 billion that are all attacking the traditional PBM. Sorry, Alan, if you're out there. I loved your talk yesterday. Loved your interview. But, and what they're doing is, whether it's PillPack, whether it's Roe, which is an amazing company, whether it's Capsule, whether it's, I forget all of them. I'm missing 1 or 2. But what they've done is they've gone after pieces of this and said, we can do this better for the consumer. Mm-hmm. And we can do it more cost effectively. And everybody was stunned because we thought it was all about scale and everything. And it's amazing, using digital tools, using the internet, how quickly you can deliver this consumer-directed, consumer-focused service. And so that industry is changing. What happens when a big industry changes? So the major PBMs have now been acquired and now wrapped into other industries. So next on that list is payers. That's coming. And people are going to look at pieces of the payer equation and say, what we thought was happening, because we thought 15 years ago, one payer would get it done. And you're a big self-insured employer, and you say, I'm going to go with X because they'll handle healthcare for our people. But over a period of time, what started to happen was they didn't do it that well. So people started to say, okay, well, let's take this piece and give this piece to Livongo and give that piece to somebody else and give that piece. And pretty soon, as the Wall Street Journal reported, the average large self-insured employer has 16 different relationships, contracted relationships, trying to deliver good care to their people. And they're still not doing it. Mm-hmm. So they're throwing their hands up and saying this model is fundamentally broken.
Yep, absolutely. So I want to double click on that, because I definitely want to get into employers and perspectives there. But before we do that, I think what you're seeing on stage is 2 storytellers. The 2 of you are storytellers. John Halleck, who I think is sitting in the front row, who's the real Transparent comms guy and maybe looking to hire Jonathan at some point soon. one of the things that
John's
he
getting
shared,
a lot of
he's
press
getting
here.
a lot of love right now.
Crushing it.
So he has shared with me over the
He's the winner of
years
this one.
that
Falling off the wagon tonight.
the thing that the two of you have in common is, and obviously there are lots of differences, but the thing that you both have in common is that you both never really turned down an opportunity to do, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's a media interview. You always prioritize and made time for that kind of storytelling and to kind of share your opinions. And sometimes, whoever was that random podcaster ended up becoming super influential in the industry, and it paid dividends. But I thought that was fascinating that the two of you kind of have that perspective on things, that you will always kind of get out there and share this story, because it's not just about operating. And I think, of course, like, we want to be great operators, but it's also about getting the message out there. So can you both speak to that?
Well, earned media is free advertising and always has been for every industry. Healthcare has a more broken demand curve, as I rambled through a minute ago, and I think being able to get attention on a problem or a solution or a combination, a way of telling the story. It feels a lot like that Monty Python movie, Healthcare, where you go out the door and one guy says, there's 10 commandments, and another says, we should pray to this chicken, and another one says, no, it's Jesus Christ. And, they've all got solutions. And it reminds me a little of HLTH, or, like, we've all got ideas, and it's AI, it's ML, So being able to kind of tell a retellable story that people can sort of say, wait a minute, yeah, actually, I'm starting to see that bear itself out in real life, helps bring thoughtful people together, helps recruit people. I mean, we've got 100 open positions at Zeus. It's critically important that we get really special people into those roles. And if I have to do a little bit of class clown to get those people to find out we exist and that we're doing that we're hiring, then well worth it. I think that it can be overdone. I think in my personal experience, early in life.
I don't think you can overdo it.
No, I know. You're so.
We have 162 open positions, by the way. I'm not saying.
I have one open.
Very
Look at
big.
he's speechless.
Very big
Unbelievable.
open positions, I know. The biggest. But I think what happens is, when Athena and me with it was an absolute nobody, chasing Glen, Tullman around the country and dressing up and doing skits, we had nothing to lose and everything to gain by being on the stage, which is probably why it was so hard to get on the stage as Glen, because he knew maybe better they don't. At some point, that begins to look silly when you have hundreds of thousands of doctors that are counting on you every day, and 5,000 employees, and it begins to be sort of fodder for the haters.
But for an early stage company, get out there. That's the
Absolutely,
message.
and I think never stop being out there. But I'm hoping, as and when I ever grow up, to modulate my tone so that I don't sort of break the have reverb in the Twitter sphere that's gross.
I think that's right. One, when you're trying to innovate, when you're offering up new ideas, storytelling is a great way to communicate a vision. So, when I talk about billing, I say, how many of you, and I can't see out there, but raise your hand if you've ever received a bill that says, this is not a bill. Have you? Just raise your hand. So it's most everybody.
For the storyteller.
So that's an example, like everybody gets that and they're saying, yes, I have. And you say, how ridiculous is that somebody tells you what it's not, like it's not a giraffe as well. And they could have put that on there, but they didn't tell you what you wanted to know, which is, what do I do with this? Do I pay it? Do I not pay it? So, but somebody had to think through and make that decision, as opposed to saying either don't send it, or send something that doesn't look like a bill and tell people what you want them to do with it. Like, we just wanted you to know that this is some information that you'll never use, or we're actually not going to pay your bill even though you thought we were, or here's what coinsurance means, and that's why it's the #1 cause of consumer bankruptcy in the United States. So those are things they could have said, but they didn't. And I think that's the issue with part of our healthcare equation. But storytelling is important. I think the same is true for an IPO. An IPO isn't just to raise money. That's a side benefit. An IPO is a branding event. It's a way to communicate your message. It's a way to get broader exposure, but you can raise money, especially today, from a variety of sources. So why would you subject yourself to being public? It's mainly for branding and communication purposes.
Absolutely, and I'll just put on my old CNBC hat and say that without a shadow of a doubt, I look back and the best storytellers in the space were the ones that had the biggest success in digital health. So one of the things we talked about was the self-insured employer, and I want to get back to that because when I started out kind of covering health tech and it was you guys were in the HR world, everybody wanted to sell to providers. That was the business model. And then things shifted to primarily the self-funded employer, and that was a whole thing. And now, like you said, those folks are inundated, and I don't think they can take any more solutions. And now, it's definitely the era of the virtual clinic where the startups have decided that they don't want to sell to providers, they want to be one. So that seems to be the new thing. So do you agree with that progression? And what do you think that there's what do you think is next here? And why do you think we kind of bounce around between kind of different strategies to kind of get there in health? What does kind of the ideal state look like?
I don't think of us as bouncing around as much as prosecuting, down a mine shaft till the bit runs out, and then grabbing a hold of that, and then using it as leverage to get to the next, and the next, and the next. I'm happy with the fact that more than half of, or almost half doctors in the United States are live on the internet with their practice. That didn't feel like we dropped the project, moved on. That's an asset that exists. And other things are now coming that are easier to connect to on top. I think the idea of assembling technology into care delivery, into leverage. I know Transcarent's not a navigator, but merging navigating with delivery in a way where the doctor, wouldn't it be nice if the doctor was your navigator? Isn't that sort of didn't we all sort of assume that back in the day? And now there's these navigator companies, which I've been invested in and so proud of them. But, what I see happening is not an automation of the middle, but an establishment around the perimeter of very interesting tech-leveraged care alternatives that basically have figured out how to stream care in a business model that responds to the singularity, that will actually get cheaper and faster and more efficient every year. K is an example that K Health charges $8 and it's sort of unlimited primary care by a bot, and maybe we're not letting Elon Musk drive our cars down the road, but it's becoming a thing. And all of these companies, Rhea and Firefly and I can't do it, so many, Ginger, Sondermine, building tech-forward pieces, just one color of the kaleidoscope, outside of the established. They're not selling to the academic medical center. They're not, sometimes they just go get a contract from the payer, sometimes they go to the employer, but what they all need is the ability to assemble that complete picture, this continuous, a different picture than we've ever had, not the sporadic blob of claim data for an event, but the continuous flow of, I'm okay, I feel good, my steps are up, my labs are normal, my sugars are right. And the ability to assemble those feeds and feed on those feeds with point solutions like the ones in this room, and basically not attack the hospital system, not hate on them, not attack the payers and hate on them, but just drain them, just pull the energy out and into the edge, into this beautiful...
Like a vampire.
Yeah, like a good vampire.
So I have a different view of that. First of all, I think, I'm not as kind to navigators because I think navigators are yet another step in this process. And you can't navigate a broken system. So the problem, like when we were at Livongo and people would say, we have a navigator, instead of going direct to our people, will you go through the navigator? When we went direct, we'd get 35, 40% of the people to opt in. And when we went through the navigator, it was like 12%. So it was just yet another step, and people want simplicity. So the first thing is you can't navigate a broken system. If you break glass in a room, like you break a glass. If you were in healthcare, you'd say, I want to clear a little space, and then I'll hire somebody when I want to walk through the room, they can remind me of the way. Most of us outside of healthcare would just sweep up the glass. And so we have to sweep up the glass. And that's what we have to do. Relative to healthcare providers, again, look, hospitals are not the problem. Providers are not the problem. Okay? They provide the care. I don't know about you, but I don't want heart surgery like at home right now. I'd rather go to a hospital. Okay? So they're not,
Sounds
we need two sides of the equation. We need all of us, we're health consumers, and we're the real payers. Okay? It's us. And it's the folks we work for. And then on the other side, there's the providers who provide care. Okay? That's all that's necessary. Good software takes the middle out. That's where the friction is. That's where the challenges are. That's where all the cost is. So, and that's sucking up all the profit today. So what we need to get to is a system that works like so many other ones. Uber connects you to the driver. It's better, people like it, or Lyft, whichever one you want to do. And Airbnb connects you to the person renting it, and on and on and on. Somebody just told me, I bought a Tesla, it was awesome. I didn't have to talk to one person. Well, I'm sorry they felt like that, but it's pretty cool that they were able to do it efficiently, and they were happy, and everybody was happier about it. So I think that's what we're coming to, and that experience, the only two things that matter in healthcare are experience and alignment. We have to get alignment. You have to know that when somebody tells you something, it's not because they're getting a kickback. I'm sorry, it's called a rebate. That's right. So it's not because they're getting a kickback. It's not because they have a preferred relationship. It's not a narrow network. Okay, we all know these things, and we seem to think they're acceptable. I mean, I would want to know if it was my son or daughter, a friend of mine, my mother or father, that I was getting them the best quality care, not the lowest cost care. I mean, who would want to use a system like that? But that's what we have today, and that's what we need to change. So, not that I'm excited, I get a little excited about it, like Jonathan, kind of in a different way.
We're just
We're
like
all
each other.
excited.
Wearing pants, wearing pants.
All right, I'm gonna do a question from the audience. And by the way, if you have questions, send them my way. So wearing investor hats, because Jonathan, you do a bit of investing. You've got a fund, Glen, with 7Wire. We touched on these valuations. I mean, since the pandemic, digital health is clearly the hot thing. They're all going up. So are you sitting this one out and waiting until valuations kind of get back to normal, or do you think this is the new normal?
We're doubling down. We're investing through 7Wire. I mean, this is the time. This is when healthcare is going to change. This is when great companies are going to get built. Yeah. You just have to make sure, hearkening back to what Jonathan was saying, that they're real businesses with a real business model. I mean, it's not like if a company's losing a lot of money providing something that's not scalable, you're kind of like, well, this isn't going to work. At some point, you have to figure out how do you support it. So, and if it's really like that, then the government has to do it. But I don't think the government's the solution here. I think all of us are the solution. So,
yeah, I think this is a Flight of the Conchords, moment. Conditions are perfect. I think Jerome Powell's been pumping out money, just spraying it everywhere. We all got a free trial offer on telemedicine from the people at COVID. And frankly, we've had a sort of massive wave of millennial consciousness about what am I working on? And while I love computer science and I'm good at computer science, not me, but I'm imagining someone, being even better at making the algos hate us, making the algos better at hating each other just doesn't give me the same zing that it used to. So you have the opportunity to bring these incredible engineers that have worked in incredible data sets in other parts of our economy to cross over into a business case, thanks to Glen and others that have that actually make a technologist able to directly affect care, not build tools which may indirectly over many cycles get to care. That is a magic moment, and that wave is way up on the beach, and of course it will recede, but based on what purchase we make now, we may keep it. We may keep some of this. And that to me is what gets me out of retirement, gets me starting company, gets me involved. And what I love about Zeus is I I couldn't I got to 70, I think, angel investments, and I didn't even know who I still, apologies if you said hello to me in the hall and I invested and I don't remember. I wanted to help, I wanted to get involved, I wanted to lend my enthusiasm, there was only so much mayo in the tin, And so what I hope Zeus does is get people their first $10 million worth of build in like 2 weeks. Just the same shit. Instead of having everybody build the registration, and everybody build the prescribing, and everybody build the care plans, and everybody build the care team matching, and everybody build the HIPAA compliance, and oh God, and then everybody try to get the data from all the haters that don't want to share it. Like, we could take all that repeat and serve it up to everybody. And if it happens to be architected the way the rest of our lives work, it would be a shared data set. We don't all keep a separate copy of all of Spotify's phones or a Rorschach sort of patchwork of phones. We just point our lens at one big list of the songs, not phones. And that's what healthcare needs to be. I think this is a time to do that because you have this incredible collection of companies, most of them in this conference today, that have a purchase, that are up on the beach, grabbing irritable bowel syndrome differently, grabbing alcohol, still opioid, like diabetes, like all these companies in this room right now with a purchase, and it's just so much work to build out the entire healthcare regulatory landscape just to do this one piece. And if we could build out a sophisticated enough infrastructure to hold those companies and let them hold their ground by being their blockers, taking care of the easy, common stuff, doing it at an incredible
plumbing,
job.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a real moment. It's like a existential moment because, of course, the amount of money in the economy will recede, and of course the payoffs to people will come down, and reality will set back in.
What you're saying is let's forget about that. It'll happen, but take the moment that we have now and just run with it.
Of course, if you want to invest money versus build companies to be invested in, I'd do the latter right now because the funding environment is, extraordinary, extraordinary. But I think the key is that we got to make these companies that we've got 8,000 of them stick.
Yeah.
You can get valued at $1 billion for less than 50 million in revenue right now. Literally, that's not real. We got to get your $50 million to 500 or 5 billion and have it actually impact care delivery, or where it has.
But I think that's where you got to go back to this idea of experience, because all of the little companies together, whether they're built more quickly because of Zeus's underlying technology or other folks who are starting to do that, that's wonderful. But people are overwhelmed. If you survey people today, they're saying they're more confused, the environment's more complex, and it's more costly than ever before. And they will tell you it's going to get worse, not better. They don't have this vision of we're about to get there. And it's not going to be technology. People say technology is going to come in. We all heard technology is going to make the difference. It's not. Actually, it's about experience. That's why we're seeing big consumer come in. So whether it's Walmart, which, Cheryl Pegas did a beautiful job of explaining their vision earlier today and a visionary leader, or whether it's Amazon, both are consumer focused. We don't think of them as technology companies.
But Glenn, you have to believe that to scalably, reliably deliver a great experience today, you have got to be tech native. Technology has to be central to it. Firefly does an incredible job.
What? That's table stakes.
Okay, but it's table stakes that no one has on their table.
That's right.
Except the people in this room. It's 1%, round to 1% of healthcare market share.
We're still working on interoperability. Like how many years later?
Yeah. What do you?
But again, interoperability, just to be clear, is not a technology problem. Jonathan knows that. I know
for
that.
sure.
Absolutely. Agree with you there.
Absolutely a competitive
All right,
issue.
we're down to our final seconds. I'm going to ask one more question because I want to slip it in there. If you both were booted out of your current companies for whatever reason.
That would never happen.
In this very distant hypothetical.
Nice.
What?
Nicely done.
Okay, we'll just entertain this scenario. So you're booted out, would never happen, but in this hypothetical, what healthcare company would you start next?
I answered that question to you when I was running Athena, and I said I would start primary care. And then you did
Firefly.
I got recruited by the founders of Firefly and my wife, and Firefly is, I think, the greatest creation. It turned out not to be primary care. It's primary care that also navigates and provides a full benefit, and using technology attaches to all of these wonderful point solutions. And I don't know if Firefly's going to win or be one of many or what, but that concept of using what we have with tech to get damn near free, intimate support of people, and use that to repurchase, rebundle healthcare is what I would do. And if I got kicked out of Firefly, I'd do it somewhere else. That, all the companies I've invested in have in common that idea of going to the edge compute, using the edge compute to get cheap and intimate and available, and then using the trust you earn by being that way to rebundle, to repurchase, to re-envision what healthcare is.
And then Glenn, for you. And
Jonathan, first of all, if you don't want to get kicked out of Firefly, say they are going to win. Otherwise, the best way.
Win big. 162 positions at Firefly.
Okay. Look, I love the fact that there's companies out there that are focused on the underserved parts of our environment and in healthcare, and so that's where I would focus. And City Block, companies like that, I think are doing wonderful things. That's the next space. And again, part of Transcarent is to say, how do we eliminate co-pays? How do we eliminate co-insurance? Our agreement with Walmart is all about how do we bring lower cost, for example, for insulin, for people who are using less insulin than they should today. They will now be able to get Walmart pricing, which is incredible, hundreds of dollars less than people are paying today, and we'll make that easy to do. So, my passion is about how do we make this incredible healthcare system we have available to everyone, and that's what I would do.
Well, with that, I think we're out of time, and we only went a few minutes over, so I consider that a win.
Great.
And
all right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you.